Hey guys, so several weeks back when we were discussing the traditional Chinese tea set, I mentioned about this simple teapot that I use at home when I just want something quick and still want to keep the quality taste of teas. Out of all the teapots that I have tried, this is one of my favorite methods. Actually, I would say this is the favorite method that I have came across. After shooting that particular episode, I was going to immediately make a video just talking about this teapot, just because I know some of you guys out there are looking for sort of a convenient way to make tea at home and don't want to deal with the entire traditional Chinese tea set. However, the reason why I came across this delay is because I was actually not able to find a suitable replacement for the particular unit that I have. Most of the units that I have found that is readily available on Amazon or in the supermarkets that I have near me, they are usually very cheaply built and the quality of it is just not really on par. Now, I don't want to recommend products to you guys that I don't particularly enjoy using. So after over a month of searching, I think I finally came across a teapot that is pretty good in quality that I can actually make this video and recommend to you guys for purchase. So without further ado, let's get this video started. Alright guys, so when I typically try to look for products to recommend, I try to look for things that are on Amazon. After searching around for a while, I did find this particular pot. Now I have actually already taken it out. This one right here. It looks very much identical to the one that I am currently using, and it's actually made by a fairly reputable company. So this company is called Kamjove. Ignore the weird name. Just know that this company has been around for quite a while, and they make quite a few kitchenware and household products. And probably the most well-known thing that I make is the hot pot stove. But anyways, my point being, there are so many knockout products that are out there on Amazon. It is actually nice to find something from a relatively respectable brand. Now with that said, the reason why I like to use this style of pot a lot is because it have a separate container for infusion. And once you have reached the desired amount of time that the tea are being steeped in, you can simply press the valve release button, which are available on both of these teapots, to drain the tea into the container without worrying about over steeping the tea. Now, quite a few pots that I have came across are actually made completely out of plastic. So to me, what's really important is that the teapot itself needs to be made out of glass. So both of these are actually made out of glass. This is the one that I have. And just as a side note, the teapot that I have been using it for the past 7-ish, almost 8 years actually. And it's been standing up to the daily abuse very well. And so that's why when I was looking for something to recommend to you guys, I really wanted it to be nicely built and at least have a glass carafe. Now the second thing is regarding the valve system. The original one that I have actually have a metal ball that is inside the infuser pot. Now this metal ball will stop the water from coming down until you press the release button, and then it will lift the metal ball, allowing the water to flow through. I was having a lot of trouble trying to find a similar metal ball bearing system. Most of the ones that I have seen, at least the ones that are available on Amazon or again in the local supermarkets, are all made with a plastic stopper. And this one is probably the best one that I have found of the bunch, which doesn't leak, which is very important, because a lot of the ones that I have found, it barely covers the hole, or it looks so flimsy that I do not believe it's going to hold its seal for a very long time. Now this one in particular have a fairly decent stopper piece. While it's still made out of plastic, it does have a very nice spring valve system, and it goes deep enough that it actually covers the hole pretty good. And at this point, I do want to mention that both of the infuser pieces are made out of plastic. There are some options out there that have both pieces made out of glass. Now, you can choose to go for that if you want. I have been using this one again for quite a few years, and you know, it served just fine. Now, the third thing that I would look for in a teapot like this is the strainer piece. First of all, you obviously want to have the strainer to be fine enough to trap most of the tea leaf. Now, secondly, please inspect that little strainer piece very carefully. I have found a lot of the ones out there have a very sort of cheaply built strainer piece that it looks like it will just fall out of its place. And that honestly is very frustrating to me. And this one that I found finally have a pretty decent mesh screen. In terms of build, the biggest difference between the one that I found on Amazon versus the one I have is that the one that I have actually have a locking mechanism that keep the infusing pot together with the actual holding pot. Now the one that I found on Amazon are just separate. They kind of just stack on top of each other. Now in practice, I don't think this is going to affect your daily use, since most likely you're going to be using this at home or at the office. So having it together or having it separate wouldn't really matter, other than for when you're pouring. Now the locking mechanism will prevent the infuser pot from falling out if you're pouring too steeply. With this unit, you'll simply just have to keep your hand on the top and pour. I think it's a good compromise versus some of the other ones that I found that does have a locking mechanism. However, the valve system and the screen are just really not up to par. Now lastly, I just want to touch about the two volume sizes that I have. They have a 500 milliliter size as well as a 700 milliliter size. 500 milliliter are usually good enough if you are making 2 brews. Now 700 will hold about 3 brews. If you're just making tea for yourself, I think the 500 is perfectly fine. However, if you're making tea for 4 people or more, you'll probably want to go for the 700. Now in terms of spout shape, this is the spout shape that I prefer. Basically the non-gooseneck style. Now the reason why I prefer this is because it takes up less space on my desk. Also, being made out of glass, I often worry about the gooseneck breaking when I'm not being careful. Alright, so with that said, let me go ahead and show you how to make tea with this particular pot and how it's different from your typical steeping teapot. So the general rule for making tea in this are very similar to making it in a full-size traditional Chinese tea set. You're still able to use high quality tea and get a good brew out of it. Now the tea that we're going to be using today, of course, is going to be my favorite again, which is the tea Guanyin. And now I mentioned in the previous video, I prefer to purchase tea that are in these little vacuum sealed bags. You can use the loose tea leaves if you would like. However, if you do happen to find a good vacuum sealed packet, one of these packets will fit into the infuser pot perfectly. So today we'll be brewing with a water temperature of 195 degrees Fahrenheit or about 90 degrees Celsius. So the first thing that I like to do is simply rinse the inner infuser pot out with some hot water to just bring that unit up to temperature. And this is probably where you can test to see how well this seal is for the stopper mechanism underneath. So as you can see, the water stays up there just fine, and I don't see any seeping through the valve underneath. The way to release the water is very simple. Again, just press this button. And as you can see, for this unit, the water flows down fairly quickly. I have also came across some poorly made ones where after you press the valve release button, the water comes down really slowly. Now it's important to find something with a good flow rate is because one, obviously you want to have your tea as fast as possible. Now secondly, if the flow rate is very slow to begin with, over time there will be some tea leaves or little tea particles that will get stuck in that little valve system, and that might end up clogging the flow rate and making it slower and slower over time. So again, after I heat this up, I'm just gonna dump out the first water. Then we are going to place in our tea leaves. So like I discussed last time, one of the first steps of enjoying a traditional Chinese tea is first examine and sniff the tea leaf. And of course, you can still feel free to do so. Now we're just gonna go ahead and add in the water. Now, just like with a traditional Chinese tea set, the first brew we are not going to drink. The first brew are simply there to awaken the tea. So what you want to do is simply examine the tea leaves, wait for it to sort of open up a little bit, and now you start to see a little bit of color in the water. We're just gonna go ahead and drain it out. So as you can see, we are looking for just a little bit of color. And this portion, we are just gonna go ahead and dump it out again. Now for the actual brew. However, before I do that, I usually like to give it a sniff because I really like the smell of the freshly, I guess, awakened tea. And I encourage you guys to try it out if you have a good quality tea leaf at home. The aroma is honestly very refreshing. All right, so now we're gonna go in with the first actual brew. As I discussed in the previous video, the first brew is really just to get your palate accustomed and really have a light brew so that you can enjoy the aroma of the tea a little bit more. So as you can see, the first brew is also very light. And today we'll be using a slightly larger teacup. And this teacup is more of a Japanese style teacup. I really chose this teacup because of its size and its weight. All right, let's take the first sip. And of course, while you are enjoying that first cup, you can go ahead and start brewing your second brew. And like I said, this pot can hold up to 2 brews with no issue. So it's quite convenient when you want to brewing this for yourself, or if you want to share this with someone else. You can have the tea brew in the infuser pot and still able to serve whatever's underneath without creating too much of a mess. So again, with the second brew, I'm letting it sit for a little bit longer than the first brew, and we should have a darker colored extraction. Now coming back to what I like about this style of teapot is because the volume of the infuser pot is very similar to the volume on the infuser pot from the traditional Chinese tea set. So therefore, the amount of brews that the tea leaves will take will stay unaffected regardless of which method you decide to use. So that is sort of a sense of consistency in case if you are using both methods like I am. And the other thing is that you're able to control the length of the brew time. And once you have the tea released from the infuser pot, it's completely separate and you don't have to worry about over steeping the tea. Now, of course, with a normal steeping teapot, you can do the same thing. You can remove the entire brew chamber or that little like steeping section. However, to me, this is a lot less messy. If you find a unit with a good valve piece, as you can see, it does not drip and you can just leave it on the table without any issue. So hopefully you guys understand now why it's so important for me to find a actual pot that have a good stopper on the valve piece. And just to show you, since this is our second brew, I can go ahead and start making my third brew. And as I mentioned last time, you can go darker and darker every time or adjust the steep time based on your personal preference. So again, just to demonstrate, it holds pretty much just about 2 brews. So you can take it out. That's it, nothing else coming out, right? I can set this on the countertop, no mess, and serve this particular pot. I just think this is very elegant, clean, and simple. And I'm able to get very good brews with this method as compared to the traditional way, which I honestly still prefer. However, this is still a great option if you want to have something that is quick, simple, and not sacrificing much as far as taste is concerned. Alright, so with that said, I'm going to leave the link to this particular pot down below in the description. Just to clarify, I'm not sponsored by them or anything like that. I honestly tried out quite a few pots until I came across this one. That is finally something that I can recommend. Now, I did find the updated version of the one that I have on Taobao. For those of you who don't mind shopping from that website, I'll also leave the link to that down below in the description as well. If I find any other link that sells this particular unit, I will try to update it in the description as I find them. However, as of now, I did not find another site to sell this particular brand or this particular pot outside of China. Alright, so that is pretty much it for this episode. I know some of you guys have been asking about this particular pot, and I'm sorry that this took a little bit longer. Again, I just wanted to make sure that I find something that I would personally use before I make this video. And now, if you find this video to be helpful, please take a moment and hit the like button. And of course, subscribe if you haven't already done so. If you have any friends that are tea lovers, feel free to share this video with them. And of course, I think this teapot will be a great gift. Alright, I'm gonna stop rambling on. As always, please take care and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.